These insects kill. Bloodthirsty parasites attacked a healthy adult man and ate him alive. Today I will tell you about dangerous insects capable of causing irreparable harm to human health and even taking lives. I warn you, this video is not for the faint-hearted. A terrifying incident occurred several years ago in the Fulton County Jail in Atlanta. LaShawn Thompson was held in a filthy cell, which was inhabited by numerous insects besides him. He spent 3 months there, waiting to be transferred to another prison where he was to be charged with assault. However, he never made it out of his cell. The inmate's body was found by a staff member who had to wear a protective suit to approach the remains. That's how filthy the cell was. The man's corpse was mutilated. It was covered with numerous cuts and injuries from repeated skin scraping. Experts concluded that the man was eaten alive by lice and bedbugs. This story was kept from the public, but it eventually appeared in the media several months later. The failed resuscitation attempt is documented in the prison report, which also mentions that the cell was covered in filth and lice. Thompson's lawyer, Michael Harper, accuses the prison staff of his client's death, claiming that he was eaten alive by insects and left to die. Before being imprisoned, the man had no physical ailments. He was completely healthy. Insects on the submarine. At risk of being eaten alive, the crew of the American nuclear submarine USS Connecticut faced this risk. During Arctic exercises, insects got on board the vessel, and their infestation later became a serious problem for the sailors. According to the submarine's chief petty officer, the bugs were literally eating people alive. The crew had to sleep on chairs because the bunks were infested with parasites. People experienced constant discomfort, lack of sleep, and fatigue, which threatened the submarine's combat readiness. The submariners tried for several months to exterminate the bloodsuckers on their own, but they were unsuccessful. They continued to torment the people, turning their lives into an endless hell. Despite numerous complaints, the command did not believe that the sailors were being eaten alive right on the bunks, as there was no evidence. Only several months later was a large-scale disinfection carried out, which the crew had been eagerly awaiting. Even though the insects were exterminated, the submariners feared that they would return to the vessel and continue to torment them. At night. Bedbugs in France. A few years ago, these tiny pests became a real scourge for the residents of France. Newspapers were filled with reports of insects found not only in homes but also in public transport, hospitals, libraries, and even police stations. The situation became so serious that the authorities held emergency meetings to develop plans to combat the pests. Citizens, fearing bites, called exterminators on their own. Many preferred to stand in crowded public transport, avoiding upholstered seats, which are an ideal refuge for bedbugs. Initially, the pests were discovered at Charles de Gaulle Airport. The situation culminated in a wave of videos on social media showing them in the Paris metro. Videos of tourists finding parasites in passenger seats quickly spread on social media. The creators of the videos warned about the need for caution when using fabric seats in public places. The discovery of pests on a ferry arriving from Marseille to Tangier raised concerns among Moroccan authorities. In Belgium, particularly in Liège, there was a significant increase in demand for pest control services. The heightened interest in disinfection is partly due to preventive measures. Experts link the increase in the number of insects, particularly bedbugs, to their importation from France and other countries via transportation and tourist personal belongings. A worm in the foot. Some parasites prefer to settle inside the human body. A unique case of parasitic infection was recorded in Australia, in a man who arrived from Sudan. For several years, a worm lived in his leg, causing severe itching. The patient sought medical help specifically because of this unpleasant symptom. After a thorough examination, doctors discovered that the parasite entered the body through the gastrointestinal tract, eventually migrating to the foot. Surgical intervention allowed for the extraction of the roundworm. The length of the parasite was about 4 inches. Fortunately, the infection did not lead to serious health complications for the patient. The case demonstrates the classic pathway of dracunculiasis infection. A person becomes infected by swallowing water containing infected cyclops crustaceans. In the stomach, the parasite larvae are released, enter the bloodstream, and migrate to the limbs, where they eventually mature and cause characteristic symptoms. The case of the Sudanese immigrant highlights the importance of sanitation and hygiene measures to prevent the spread of dracunculiasis and the necessity of seeking timely medical attention if suspicious symptoms arise, such as severe itching in the legs or other parts of the body. The blowfly. At the beginning of the video, I mentioned that insects killed a person in a prison cell. However, as it turns out, even a hospital ward is not always a safe place. A Canadian patient, whose name is not disclosed, experienced a horrifying incident. Her hospitalization, caused by a sudden deterioration in health, turned into an unexpected and terrifying complication. In the intensive care unit room, whose windows and doors were closed, a green blowfly flew in, known for its ability to penetrate human skin and lay eggs there. Doctors could not explain how the insect got into the room, suggesting that it might have flown in from an adjacent hospital building. During the time when the patient was in a state close to unconsciousness or asleep, the blowfly presumably penetrated under her skin. During the few days spent in the hospital, the insect laid more than 100 larvae in the area of the woman's eyelids and ears. This was a shock for the medical staff and the patient herself. The removal of the larvae from the woman's eyes and ears took several hours. Fortunately, the timely intervention of the doctors prevented serious health consequences for the woman, and she was discharged from the hospital. The case underscores the necessity of strictly adhering to sanitary standards in medical facilities, even in seemingly sealed environments like intensive care units. Worms in the eyes. If in the previous case the doctors dealt with larvae, the next story is again about worms. A resident of the Chinese city of Kunming underwent a shocking surgery to remove 60 live parasitic worms from her eyes. The woman sought medical help after she scratched her eye and discovered that a live worm had fallen out of it. This was an alarming signal that prompted her to immediately consult ophthalmologists. During the subsequent surgical intervention, doctors were shocked by the extent of the infestation. There were numerous parasites between the eyeballs and eyelids of the patient. 50 worms were extracted from the right eye, and another 10 from the left. All the parasites belong to the Filarioidea type. These are roundworms, typically found in Africa and some regions of South Asia, spread through insect bites. However, the woman categorically denies the version of infection through bites, claiming that her pets were the source of the infection. According to her, she petted her pets and then, without washing her hands, carelessly touched her eyes, which led to the horrifying consequences. The case highlights the importance of thorough hygiene, especially after contact with animals, and the necessity of seeking immediate medical attention at the appearance of any suspicious symptoms, such as discomfort or discharge from the eyes. Doctors closely monitored the patient after the surgery, assessing her condition and ruling out the possibility of residual parasites or the development of complications. Worm from sushi. What you are about to hear may forever change your attitude towards sushi. Dr. Kenny Bunn, a general practitioner, encountered an unusual case. A patient came to him complaining of severe diarrhea and claiming to be suffering from helminthiasis, meaning an infection with worms. Initially, the doctors regarded the patient's words with a healthy dose of skepticism. However, the patient provided the doctor with tangible evidence to support his claims. A tapeworm of impressive size, which he claimed to have extracted himself during defecation. The length of the parasite astonished the doctor. It measured about 64 inches. During the conversation, it was revealed that the patient was a big fan of Japanese cuisine, particularly sushi. The resident of Fresno, California, admitted that he consumed raw fish almost daily. This was most likely the cause of the infection. Failure to follow the rules for processing and storing raw fish. A common cause of infection with various types of parasites, including tapeworms, which can reach incredible sizes, as in this case. The patient promised Dr. Ban to radically change his eating habits and to permanently give up consuming raw fish to avoid similar problems in the future. I don't know about you, but I think I'll have pizza for dinner tonight. Worms from a dove bite. Another horrifying story happened to a 70-year-old resident of the Indian state of Gujarat. A giant parasite was removed from his eye. Jasabai Patel suffered from excruciating pain and itching in his eye for several years. Despite numerous visits to doctors, the exact cause of his ailment remained a mystery. He was helped by an experienced ophthalmologist, Milan Punchal. He discovered a live parasite of considerable size in the patient's eye. Dr. Punchal performed a complex operation to remove the worm. The patient, who was under local anesthesia, could feel the process of the parasite's removal. "We extracted it alive," Punchal stated, emphasizing the critical importance of timely intervention. A delay threatened irreversible loss of vision, and there was also a risk of the parasite entering the brain through the circulatory system. The operation, which lasted 25 minutes, was not simple. The worm's active movement made it difficult to capture and extract. According to Patel, he was bitten by a dog 12 years ago. Doctors suspected that this attack was the cause of the infection. Dr. Punchal explained that such parasites often reside in the oral cavities of dogs and cats. Worm in the brain. Another man lived with a tapeworm in his brain for 15 years. In Guangzhou, Chinese surgeons successfully extracted a tapeworm from the brain of a 50-year-old man. Wang Lei's medical history began 15 years ago with the onset of unusual symptoms. The left side of the man's body lost sensitivity, and he also experienced severe headaches. Initially, doctors suspected a malignant brain tumor and prescribed appropriate treatment. However, the patient's condition continued to deteriorate. He was plagued by frequent epileptic seizures and progressive amnesia. After numerous examinations, the true cause of his suffering was identified. A tapeworm, which typically parasitizes in the digestive systems of cats and dogs, was residing in Wang Lei's brain. This is an extremely rare occurrence in humans. Initially, doctors recommended conservative treatment, considering the dangerous location of the parasite in close proximity to vital brain structures. However, the ineffectiveness of medication therapy forced surgeons to undertake a risky operation to extract the worm. The 2-hour operation, conducted in one of Guangzhou's hospitals, was successful. The surgeon who performed the operation emphasized the high complexity of the procedure, due to the mobility of the live parasite inside the brain. The complete removal of the worm was critically important to prevent its further reproduction and growth. Doctors strongly recommend consuming only thoroughly processed food and boiled water. Tick in the ear. A 9-year-old boy from Connecticut became the victim of an unusual tick attack, which settled in his right ear. The child complained of strange noises in his ear, and upon visiting the hospital, doctors discovered a tick stuck in the inflamed eardrum. The extraction of the parasite required surgery under general anesthesia, as the tick had deeply penetrated the membrane. Fortunately, serious harm to the boy's health was avoided. Doctors note that such cases, although not common, do occur, especially in children. In most cases, the removal of a tick from the ear is performed under local anesthesia, but in this case, the depth of penetration required more serious intervention. To avoid such situations, parents should remember preventive measures. When walking in nature, especially in wooded areas, it is recommended to wear light-colored clothing with long sleeves and pants, tucked into socks and shoes. This makes it easy to spot ticks. The use of repellents is necessary. Instructions for use should be strictly followed. After walks in nature, it is necessary to thoroughly check yourself and children for ticks, paying special attention to the scalp, ears, groin, armpits, and skin folds. Regular house cleaning and treatment of the area around the house. Insecticides will help reduce the number of ticks. It is necessary to mow the grass and remove shrubs near the house. Paralyzed man. A much more shocking story happened to a 36-year-old paralyzed man. His wife, with whom he had lived for 12 years and who was the mother of 2 children, left him to slowly rot and be eaten by maggots. Paramedics found the immobilized man on the brink of death in a cockroach-infested apartment in Concord. The woman called emergency services when her husband started having breathing problems. Paramedics arrived at the scene and found the sick man, whose body was covered in bed sores and maggots. The floor was littered with rotting garbage and feces, with cockroaches and flies swarming everywhere. A dirty, lice-infested mattress served as the man's bed. A neighbor described the place as a stinking location. The patient, hospitalized in critical condition, died within a day from severe dehydration, malnutrition, and infection. His bones were deformed from emaciation. The police called it one of the most egregious cases of neglect they had ever encountered. According to Corporal Blakely, the patient was unable to speak, was gasping for air, and his body was being eaten by maggots. His wife could not explain the situation other than by citing fatigue and stress. Cockroaches. I have told you several stories about people being eaten alive by maggots and worms. But can insects that are much more commonly encountered in a person's life cause harm? For example, cockroaches. Although cockroaches, of which there are 4,500 species, have strong enough jaws to bite, this happens very rarely. They prefer other food sources and attack humans and animals only accidentally, trying to determine the edibility of the object. A cockroach bite, if it does occur, would be similar to a mosquito or bedbug bite. Afterward, the person will notice a small, itchy, red bump. The treatment is standard. Wash with soap and water, apply a cold compress, and use antihistamines if necessary. Allergic reactions to cockroach bites are unknown. However, as with any wound, it's important to avoid scratching to prevent infection. A much greater health risk is posed by allergens released by cockroaches. Their saliva, excrement, and particles of their chitinous shell can cause allergic reactions and asthma. Increased concentrations of dust-containing cockroach allergens exacerbate symptoms such as coughing, nasal congestion, wheezing, and skin itching, and can also trigger infections, ear infections, and sinusitis. What makes bedbugs dangerous? Often, people coexist with bedbugs, which I mentioned at the beginning of the video. Although there may not be scientific evidence that bedbugs are carriers of infectious diseases, their presence poses serious risks to public health and well-being, as well as causing economic damage. Living with bedbugs can cause severe allergic reactions. Reactions to bites can lead to anaphylactic shock, infection of bite wounds, resulting in skin diseases, and a negative impact on the mental health of people living in homes infested with bedbugs. Bedbugs most often spread through infested items, clothing, furniture, and other household objects. They are found in residential homes, dormitories, hotels, as well as in stationary, medical, and children's institutions. In these places, bedbugs primarily settle in bedroom furniture, cracks in walls and floors, behind baseboards, under wallpaper, in joints of furniture and cabinetry, as well as in books, paintings, and wooden windowsills. This allows them to easily move between rooms, houses, and even cities. Even within a single building, bedbugs can independently spread from one apartment to another. Therefore, upon discovering bedbugs, it is necessary to inform neighbors, as the insects can move through ventilation ducts, electrical outlets, pipes, and along exterior walls. Before purchasing furniture and appliances, carefully inspect them for any damage and dirt. Avoid using second-hand furniture and carpets, especially those found on the street. They may be infested with bedbugs. To prevent infestation, regularly carry out maintenance work in the apartment. Whitewash the ceilings, carefully wallpaper the walls without gaps, seal the cracks in the floor, baseboards under the windowsills, and door frames. Treatment with larvae. People have learned to use the passion of some insects for human flesh to their advantage. Thus, one of the oldest methods of cleaning open wounds is larval therapy. For this method, fly larvae were used, particularly those of the blue or green bottle fly. It was believed that this allowed for the effective removal of necrotic tissue, preventing suppuration and inflammatory processes. The secret of its effectiveness lies in the unique feeding mechanism of the larvae. By secreting special enzymes, they dissolve dead tissue, leaving healthy tissue untouched. In doing so, the larvae do not bite and do not have stinging organs. They work like natural surgical instruments. Treatment could be conducted either by placing the larvae freely in the wound or by using special gauze bags, although the latter method is less effective. Interestingly, the use of larvae for treatment has a history spanning centuries, with mentions found even in the lives of saints. Its systematic application has been documented since the time of Napoleon. During World War I, Dr. William Baer from the Johns Hopkins School of Medicine used the method of maggot therapy. He described a case where medics found 2 soldiers on the battlefield who had been lying with their wounds for about a day without medical assistance. Upon examination after removing their clothing, thousands of larvae were found in the wounds. Despite this, the wound tissues were clean and pink. Conclusion. I hope that after watching this video, you haven't started itching and looking around for swarms of insects approaching you. Remember, not everything that crawls and flies intends to harm you. Most insects are just living their lives, not paying any attention to us. So be curious, but also be cautious. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to my channel so you don't miss new videos.